I'm Michael, and this is the story about my grandmother during the Second World War. My grandmother is Indonesian and is still alive to this day. She doesn't really remember her experience during the Second World War since she's getting a bit older now, but luckily my mother remembers everything that my grandmother told her about her experience. In March 1942, the Japanese started to occupy and invade Indonesia, and they started to take a lot of Indonesia's islands and a lot of the land. Before the Japanese invaded, Indonesia was occupied by the Dutch and was mainly known as the Dutch East Indies. In December 8th, 1941, the Dutch had declared war against the Japanese, and in around January of 1942, the Japanese started to invade Indonesia and start to slowly get more and more land and more islands from Indonesia. My grandmother was 5 at the time when Japan started to invade Indonesia. She lived on a little island, well, not little, but an island named Buton, where she lived with her father, mother, brothers, and sisters. She knew that the Japanese were invading, and she was very scared. My grandmother's father also knew that the Japanese started to invade and occupy, and he had also heard that the Japanese started to take all the Indonesians' homes, all their belongings, and then after most of the time the Japanese would kill the Indonesian people. He had to think, and he finally thought of a plan and thought that they had to hide somewhere so the Japanese would not kill their family, take their homes, take their belongings. So my grandmother's father took his family up to the mountains where they hid in a cave. Life in the cave was very difficult for them. First of all, the food was very, very difficult to get, and basically they would have to eat anything they could see. It'd mainly be vegetables or fruits, and meat was very, very rare to get. It was not easy to get food for them. Sometimes they could plant, but rarely. Also, the sanitation was obviously very bad since they're up in the mountains, and so it's very easy to catch diseases. And then again, since they're up in the mountains, there's no medication, and since there's a lot of diseases that you can catch and easy to catch diseases, no medication, very, very difficult to live there. It was a very rough time for my grandmother, as all of her brothers and sisters, they all had passed away during their time in the cave. My grandmother had then stayed with my grandmother's father and mother till the end. In around 1945, the Allied powers had tried to liberate and take Java, and in the end, the Japanese had surrendered and had given up and were taken prisoners. Then my grandmother and her parents had moved back to Buton, to their home, and stayed there. Sadly, after, my grandmother's parents both passed away, but then my grandmother met my grandfather, and they got married and moved to Jakarta, and that's where they live today. Thank you.